Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimal Championship League. It is week number 1 of competition, and while this isn't necessarily the very first game to be played, this is very close to it. So I want to use this as a launching point for this season. It's going to be Optimal Esports. I can't believe they named the whole league after them. And Ragnarok Berserkers going at it in a best-of-3 series. I'm Nyarko on play-by-play, and I'm accompanied by Aulz on color, and we will be, hopefully, your guides for the Optimal Championship League, unless we get fired for saying something too odd or me making too many bad puns. Regardless, though, we're going to jump into draft very shortly, but we do want to give you guys a little bit of context. Alls, take it away.
Yeah, so we've got four teams that we're going to be seeing this evening. First up, we've got Optimal Esports, the home team, who we are contractually obligated to play nice with, so we are sorry. Get used to it. On the other side, we have Ragnarok Esports. We see Ragnarok all over the amateur scene. This squad, the Berserkers, has a mix of players that we've seen before and a couple of players that are new to me and likely new to you as well. Then for our second match here at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, we have Deanza White, the what appears to be junior team for Deanza, and always slept on the red side for week 1. We've already had what looks to be 2 matches so far. The Foodie Plays and Elysium Valor played on Sunday, and happy to be here and top 3 squared off just last night. Looks like we are getting into draft, so no rest for the wicked here.
For sure, and Optimal Esports starting off on blue side, going to be banning away that Zillion. Ragnarok now has the ball in their court. We're going to see how these two teams decide to work against one another. Obviously, the meta has shifted quite a bit with the movement to 11.3 or 13.3. I guess I'm still 2 years in the past. But the thing to note here is that, especially early on, sometimes it's better to just scout out what people are one-tricking during solo queue or just like to play in general, maybe from past competition and past seasons elsewhere across the amateur world. And it looks like Optimal Esports are going for that latter approach rather than trying to pinch away meta champions. They are looking at the comfort picks that Ragnarok is known for. That's because the Zoe and the Zillion both are prominently shown by T-Lights and Elliot, respectively. They are both banned away. However, Ragnarok, on the other hand, going a little bit more for that meta knockout. They're going to take away the Ashe, which could be flex ADC or support, alongside that Zaya that is really power spiking right now.
Yeah, this is a bit of a dangerous play by Ragnarok, not so much for the course of the game, but because they are banning away champs from the commissioner of the league. Robin is playing ADC here. You mentioned it's a little bit hard to scout some of these folks early on in the season. Tim, the jungler for Optimal Esports, has not played a ranked game so far. How in the world do you scout that, Nyarko?
I'm not really sure how you scout that. Maybe just DM him nicely and pretend to be someone with the media or whatnot, and maybe he will just give you the juicy secrets of the team. I think that happened at a world championship once, if I'm not mistaken, but that's beside the point. Let's see now what Optimal Esports prioritize. The Aurelion Soul jammed immediately, so I guess that they too have their ear down to the ground when it comes to what's powerful right now.
Yeah, we see a lot about the Aurelion Soul being powerful, and personally, this may be a bit of agency bias. I've been seeing it a lot in solo queue and norms, and I've never run into anyone who's actually played a very good game of Aurelion Soul.
Mm-hmm.
The Aurelion Soul has always felt very lackluster to me. Like, yes, there are a lot of powerful parts in the kit. That Q is incredibly valuable. Having the movement, having the draw in stun, having the immense ultimate is theoretically powerful, but I'm just not seeing it actually hit. So I'm a little bit curious to see if Optimal is able to actually generate what the hype is about.
And it's interesting that Optimal goes for this so early on in the draft phase. In the past, it was a very, very niche champion. Obviously, he's become a little bit more accessible after the rework came through, but Annie is still open. And if you wanted to go for an overbalanced mid laner right now that is probably a little bit too good for their own good, go for the Annie instead, because they're massively accessible, hasn't changed their kits in years. So basically, you could access the same kind of power that the Aurelion Soul does, but maybe Izzo just likes it. Maybe we're going to see something special finally come through, or they're just going to pick the Annie as well. Never mind.
Well, that's one way to get the strongest meta picks. You just stack them all back to back to back. Now,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say Sejuani and Varus are picked on the other side, so they're also picking meta picks back to back. But I think that on either side we are seeing kind of two different approaches. One is grab the things that are stable, and the other one is grab the things that are very, very powerful, if not a little bit volatile, just because of the way that they have been balanced.
Yeah, the Sivir does add a little bit of smoothness to the team. Sivir is consistent, has a nice solid curve here, so it won't be difficult for the Sivir in Robin's hands to go fine. However, with the Annie, with the very short range support and lockdown, I'm a little bit curious to see if they'll be able to ever get onto the Varus of Buiz here.
There's a chance that we see the Annie go top or something like that. I mean, it's definitely done. Annie bot will play the champion wherever they are put. So it is possible that we see a flex. Aurelion Soul top also could be viable, especially with the fact he can move around the map and relocate relatively quickly.
This is true.
But it most likely is going to be Annie support, and I do want to echo that sentiment that you have, Aulz. It seems like the Varus is going to be a tough champion to get towards. One of the things that allows for Annie to play support quite nicely is that her auto attack range is so long that you're just able to constantly needle away and stack up your Spell Thief's edge. But up against the Varus, that strength is a little bit lessened. Not to quite the same degree that I would say it is taken down by like Caitlyn, but it's still going to be a difficult matchup for sure. And I really like this Yone also being followed through.
Yeah, Yone pretty good. Being able to get on top of the Aurelion Soul, a lot of Aurelion's power, especially after the new update, is being able to keep you at kind of a mid to arm's length. And Yone, with his dashes, with his ultimate, is able to just ignore that, hop right on top of you, and suddenly a Soul struggles to get away, will have to use that movement very defensively.
All right, and now losing
Seraphine.
off of that second ban phase. Yeah, the
Oh,
Seraphine coming through. I
that's a
like this as
lot of
well.
lockdown.
It is a lot of lockdown, and Seraphine's another one of those champions that can play like an artillery mage during lane. Maybe isn't the highest damage choice to go into the support role, but once again is really able to just kind of sit back far away from Annie, outside of her auto attack range, outside of her Q range, and just poke away at these two champions.
Yeah, I mean this is a little bit of a misdraft, I think, from OE because you already saw that the Varus was coming out. You kind of could guess that Ragnarok was going to be specking into a poke lane, and you choose what's basically counter engage with the Sivir, with the Annie for the disruption, and the wide range stun with the disintegrate. I, I just feel like they back themselves into a corner, and the Seraphine is kind of the nail in the coffin there. So the Kindred for pardon me, Tim is going to have to, I think, look a little bit elsewhere to find power points.
I do think that the Kindred is a good response to what we're seeing coming through from Berserkers now, because while I do believe that your engage isn't the best with the Annie, even with the set coming through, I still believe that Ragnarok is just going to be able to work with the zone control a lot better. The Kindred, if they do get in, will be able to shred, will be able to throw down their Lamb's Respite and provide a really nice zone of control for Optimal Esports that they could play inside of while they prepare for a full-on 5v5 onslaught. Ragnarok at the end here going to round out their composition with the Singed for You Wrong Me Right, and this is definitely a specialization pick. So given that Optimal Esports clearly have done their homework by banning out that Zoe and that Zillion, I'm a bit shocked they also didn't take away the Singed.
Yeah, I mean, Singed has been surprisingly effective in the top lane, sitting second or third in the rankings in Plat Plus over the past patch. So even though we're not targeting meta champs here, the fact that it got all the way to red 10 is baffling to me. And the fact that it was picked up here is a little bit unsurprising for the side of Ragnarok. It'll be interesting to see how it does work into the set, of course, able to push out lanes pretty quickly, so the proxying power of Singed being able to just make the lane miserable and being able to move around the map, harass your jungler, harass the mid laner, do whatever he pleases, not so much possible when Set can clear the wave rapidly and still follow.
Definitely. I am a little bit confused as to a lot of these matchups for Singed. It feels that on paper they wouldn't be good, but I think that's because I don't really know their specific interactions. For instance, I think that Singed, if he wants to just run at an enemy team, probably just gets showstoppered right back out and will have to reapproach yet again. And I also feel that just trying to get close to something like an Annie, something like a Sivir is going to be difficult. In the form of Annie, you get stunned, you get the Tibbers put onto you, you get slowed from that. But in the hands of Sivir, she just pops ultimate spell shields your initial throw, and from there it's very difficult for you to catch up. Even if you pop all of your speed, I think that you may be able to like equalize with her, but I still believe that it's going to be a longer chase than you would hope for. So maybe Ragnarok is looking specifically to flank with this Singed or do something funky with it. Maybe just proxy in that early game and be a nuisance for the team, pull resources up to them rather than going there and disrupting fights.
I understand where you're coming from, but on the other side of the coin, a lot of these champions are fairly short ranged. The Kindred not going to be able to go from far away until she gets 8, 12, 16 stacks of the passive. Set's going to be right up trying to punch into your team. So for the Singed, might not be as much about damage and chase down as it is about acting as a secondary form appeal, working with the Sejuani to keep Varus and Seraphine safe so that they can chug from the backside.
All right. Well, from the client draft, we're also seeing that it will, in fact, be that Annie support for Blue Caboose, like we were talking about earlier. Pata is going to be playing that set. So the Singe set matchup, it's a classic of that top lane, you know? It's
Oh,
just a
yeah.
matter of how many high level Singe do you think someone has played against this early on into a season? It can't be that many.
You would tend to think, but the nice thing about Singed is he's been more or less the same since Season 3. And
Mhm.
even earlier, probably. I'm pretty sure he was one of the first 40, and he hasn't really been modified since then. So if you've played against one Singed, you've played against them all. As long as you know how to defeat the proxy, you'll be alright.
Mhm. It definitely is a little bit of a knowledge check, though, and we'll see if Pata is going to be ready for that. I do think that set has a really good time actually interrupting Singe's game plan. You could just face breaker them, keep them stuck under a tower, and it's a little bit hard for Singe to wiggle out and actually cause the havoc that he's known to do so. But it does require really good hands and a really good set of macro calls from both Kindred and Set, I think, to keep this champion under control. And we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. Overall, I still like Ragnarok Berserker's team comp a little bit more, though. I just feel it's more cohesive. Yone ulting off the back of Varus's chains or Seraphine's encore is going to be absolutely massive for Red Squad's side. And Sejuani is another champion that, alongside the Yone and Singed, will be able to pick off any struggling members of Optimal Esports that overextend. Meanwhile, on Blue Squad's side, while I do think they have individually very powerful champions with a whole lot of carry potential, it's just a question of can they pilot these guys together, especially when they're up against such long range from Ragnarok.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for Optimal, but with the level that these leagues are playing at, anything is possible. I mean, we've seen Diamond Masters, Grandmasters games where it's looked like one team has had an incredible lead just out of pick ban, and they've thrown it all away in the first 15 minutes. So, while I agree that Ragnarok absolutely has the advantage here, they still have to make sure that they play this out.
Yeah, definitely. The draft is only a small part of a larger machine in this game. I think that right now, Optimal Esports and Ragnarok have good chances at both coming out with a little bit of momentum in this best of three series. It's just a matter of can you shore up for your champion and team weaknesses. Optimal Esports got a lot on their plate, but they do want to cement their victory here, not only in this game, but in the series as a whole, as you know, this whole entire thing is named after them. So if they lose here at Ragnarok, we might have to change this to the Ragnarok Championship League, and that just doesn't sound quite as good. But regardless, Aulz, we're going to throw it to a quick break here, go to the spectator delay, and come back with game number one. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Optimal Championship League for game number 1 between Optimal Esports and Ragnarok Berserkers. Optimal Esports looking to keep their namesake proud and try to get this first victory of the night in this best-of-3 series. They're on blue side, and it looks like everybody's just moving for a classic 5-point. Not a whole lot of invade potential, although you do have to watch out for blue caboose on Annie. If they take Q, because they get the fully stacked passive now after the little mid-scope or adjustments that she got, she can actually stun right from the very beginning of the game, and that could have been an angle in.
Yeah, it could have been an angle. However, at level 1, I'm not particularly concerned with the rest of the team being able to do a whole bunch of damage here, so I don't think there's much for Ragnarok to be concerned about.
Definitely. And so because of that, Ragnarok, happy to just 5-point. They don't have to do anything super cautious. We also aren't really seeing any attempts to invade throughout the rest of the map. I think everybody kind of feels that this is going to be a relatively relaxed early game. Both Kindred and Sejuani, while they clear at different speeds, I don't think really care about how fast the early game plays out. Tim might want a little bit of help making sure that they're able to get their mark, but besides that, I think that both of them are happy to sit back and just find the lanes that are getting pushed and look for ganks from there.
Yeah, it might be a little bit difficult for Tim to find any particular help, though, as I'm not sure how many of these lanes outside of the top lane are going to be really winning enough to be able to wander off and help collect crabs or light invade for a camp.
That's definitely true, although Robin on Sivir is notorious for being able to just wave clear, and I think Blue Caboose is going to help on that front quite a bit. And because of that, we could be seeing a lot of priority bots out of the map early that Tim can play off of. Regardless, though, we are seeing an opposite side start between these two junglers, with the Kindred starting on the red buff and Sejuani doing the same. So I think this is going to lead to even less contestation and probably just going to cross over, get crabs on either side. Let's just see where the mark falls.
Yeah, a couple of minutes left until that mark spawns. We're already seeing some pretty heavy fighting in the top side, and Pata's definitely taken the brunt of it so far. You Wrong Me Right doing a great job of putting the hurt down with the Singed.
And this is kind of expected. Top laners always love to go for the deep trades early because if you gamble, especially hard against someone like You Wrong Me Right, who doesn't have teleport, you can really impact the lane and get the dynamic very much in your favor from early on. And given the way that Kindred is pathing, it makes sense that Pata wants to walk up and try to go for these fights. But You Wrong Me Right, as you're saying before, doing a really good job just trading out with that Singed, knowing the limits of this champion quite nicely, and therefore is getting the push.
Yeah, getting the push. However, Pata does have the level advantage now, and finally starting to turn those fights around a little bit. So this might be a very volatile lane.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see what Set wants to do. They could probably just let this wave continue to push in. Kindred is pathing towards the top side of the map, although they are caught out on the ward, so I think because of that, You Wrong Me Right's just going to respect it, back off a little bit. And speaking of deep trades, Izzo going low mid up against Elliot.
Yeah, didn't manage to put hardly any damage back on the Yone. Being able to launch himself back onto the other side of the lane means that the Yone basically untouched while taking 3/4 of Izzo's health bar. That's going to be pretty dangerous if Elliot can find another angle in, especially with the Ignite in his back pocket here.
All right, and I guess we're moving across the map, so let's focus on bot side for a second, Aulz. I gotta say, this is an impressive showing right now from Boys and T-Lights, although Izzo's in trouble getting ignited, having to hide under that tower. Elliot's gonna take a tower shot back, but that's yet again a favorable trade for the Yone, and that's gonna force Izzo out of the lane for the time being.
Yeah, it does force Izzo out. However, Elliot taking 2 turret shots there means that he won't be able to stick around for much longer either, so we will see a reset, which I think gives a little bit of this advantage back towards Izzo. Flash forward in the top lane from Tim might be able to pick off You Wrong Me Right, and there's first blood for the jungler of Optimal Esports.
Ignite being burnt as well, You Wrong Me Right, losing that resource, so that's going to make trades even harder for them, and already Pata's showing that in the 1v1. They've done their homework, and they know what's up versus the Singe.
Yeah, as we mentioned in Champ Select, not being able to proxy makes this lane a little bit harder for You Wrong Me Right, and Pata, even in the straight-up trades, feels more than happy, it seems, now that he's reached that level 3 and has everything at his disposal. Gonna be interesting to see if You Wrong Me Right can turn this around when level 6 comes and he gets the Insanity Potion.
That being said, Atlas is trying to cross map here, setting up at the enemy Krugs, looking for the reset now. Tim will be here, but not in time to stop this back, although Atlas just interrupted it for basically no reason, I think, which means that we could be seeing a clash bot side of the map right now. Izzo yet again forced back by Elliot. and they're deep trading there inside of that soul form. The Yone is just going to take a lot less damage, and so yet again, the Star Dragon finds themselves hard-pressed early. Pata now top side of the map, going to get shoulder flipped back. You wrong, me right, has found themselves up the creek without a paddle, though, and now Set is blocking off their escape route. Look at this, going low, flash forward, and oh gosh, the Singe has died twice now, and they aren't even proxying.
This is rough to watch as a top laner. You lose one kill and you realize you have to play passive, and you sit back and you kind of look for a little advantage, and then you start thinking, hey, I've only died once. This is still basically even. I can go in again. And then you die again. And then the lane is over, but...
invade topside, though. Tim going way too deep right there, trying to get the mark. And while Izzo is there as backup, Elliot and company are just on top of it. Atlas just able to cover that camp, and so far, it's actually just going to be one kill traded back. Ragnarok Berserkers doing a good job holding on elsewhere on the map.
Yeah, not getting that mark is going to be rough for Tim. I'm not sure. Did we see if he got a mark for the Singed in the top lane?
Well, let's give it a look-see here. How does this work? You click on them. See the
currently sitting at 1 mark.
And they're sitting at 1 mark, yep.
And you gotta hit 4 before you're really a champion, so Tim still has a bit of a ways to go there.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they're playing risky. I think that Kindred is a champion that very much benefits from going aggro, getting early invades off. But right there, they were just doing it up against Elliot, who can reposition so quickly with their soul form that it's very, very tough for them to do anything without massive priority for Izzo. And we saw Optimal Esports overstep because of that fact and get punished.
Yeah, you know, out of everything so far this game, I'm surprised that we haven't said a single thing about any of these fights bot side, because there just haven't been any.
Well, you know, Aulz, I did try to say something earlier, but then we had all the chaos top, so that did stop our roll a little bit. But yeah, this is a very interesting lane to talk about, because I think that Ragnarok Berserkers had a really good read on what Robin and Blue Caboose were trying to do. And because of that, the advantage is really coming in the form of the range that the Varus and Seraphine are bringing to the table, which does mean that we aren't getting any crazy fights because everybody's standing 20 feet from one another. But still, I do think that this is going to be a winning lane for Ragnarok Berserkers, and I would like to see Atlas pay a little bit more attention down there.
Yeah, well, you said it's a winning lane for Ragnarok. Problem is, they're still losing the CS battle. Robin has been CSing just a little bit better than Bweeze so far here. We do see Atlas in the bush, but without jungle help, I almost wonder whether or not Optimal Esports is happy letting this lane AFK to eternity.
I don't think it's that bad. Right there, you can see when the waves equalize that Bweeze gets to perfect parity in CS with Robin. So I think that both of these champions are just going to look for the scale battle late. And for me, one of the dynamics to watch out for is just the fact that I worry about how much utility the Annie is going to have during team fights because of the aforementioned range advantage for Ragnarok Berserkers as a whole. If they just get hit by an Encore and get bursted out immediately, it doesn't matter that they were able to get their AD carry about to even on farm versus Bweeze there in the early game. That's still going to be one champion down that you're playing without during team fights for Optimal Esports.
Yeah, that's very fair. It'll be a bit tough for Blue Caboose. Speaking of a bit tough, would have been a bit tough for Tim to try and steal that, so not even going to try, going to give over first Hex Drake to the side of Ragnarok.
And I like the respect that Optimal Esports are giving to Ragnarok right here, given the team composition that they have with all the Stardust that their Aurelion Soul needs to build up, and the fact that they have a Sivir on their team. They don't have to do a whole lot early to stay competitive in this game, especially given to the extent to which they're smashing topside with this set. So, yeah, give away a Drake. It doesn't really matter at this point in the game. They want to just play off of these waves, be responsive to the lane state mid and bot. And if OE still are having a gold lead after the first neutral objective is taken, then I think they're in a perfectly good spot.
Yeah, well, they did get the Rift Herald back. So that's a lot of latent gold currently sitting in the pocket of Tim, wherever he chooses to put that. And for my sake, I would be pretty interested in tossing it up towards the top lane, pushing the advantage for Pata even further, making this set a split push demon that'll force at least Elliot and potentially 2 or 3 members of the side of Ragnarok to deal with him every time he pushes forward.
That's definitely true. I think that that would be really nice. And now Pata is really looking to smash this lane even further with the showstopper, pulling back the Singe, but choosing to not trade further.
Yeah, did get a nice trade, got him down to about half. Popped the Insanity Potion as well. So that's an expensive trade to not have turn into an extended fight here if you're You Wrong Me Right.
That being said, I think at this point in time, You Wrong Me Right is pretty happy to just sit in that semi-ulted form and continue to push these waves out, maybe by a little bit of rest, but now he's walked up too far, being taken low once more, gonna be able to E back Pata, but he will have to leave this wave alone. And so, what I was just talking about, that narrative falls by the wayside, set once again in full control of the top lane, although he's taking a lot of poke from those minions mid lane. Meanwhile, Izzo just has a flashback as you see Atlas show.
Yeah, Atlas showing up, did have the Glacial Prison, chose not to use it.
Oh
You
no,
Wrong Me
the
Right
Facebreaker!
gets the ground!
Oh man, Pata gonna have to flash forward, uses their W kind of early just to be able to dodge out of the way of more damage from the tower shot. But You Wrong Me Right, sensing blood in the water, gonna ignite, get the foot back into the poison, and that is a kill returned in a big way. Ragnarok Berserkers equalizing the kill score and maybe equalizing the top lane.
Yeah, that is a huge kill for You Wrong Me Right. Did have to burn both Ghost and Flash, but able to get that kill, able to get some gold back, and more importantly, able to get his feet back under him. I know we tend to make a lot of jokes about how, well, never mind, You Wrong Me Right may be dead here.
Izzo gonna rotate up from that mid lane, gets quite a nice little bit of damage down, and You Wrong Me Right just doesn't have the mana, and so with the Fire Breath burning, Izzo will finally be able to pick up a kill on that Aurelion Soul.
Yeah, well, the kill for You Wrong Me Right would have helped equalize the mental game top lane, but dying to a mid laner roam feels pretty bad, so right back to where he started goes this Singed.
To be fair, out of all of the champions to die to a roam to, Aurelion Soul is pretty high on the list of champions you expected from, just given the amount of mobility that they had. They just zoomed into that lane and immediately melted down the Singed, and given that that is the movement speed champion that they just played up against, that's a rough feeling for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But top lane is not the only lane. Looks like Atlas has finally remembered that as he's coming down to the bot side. We'll be sitting on a ward, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, no lane gank really possible here. Robin and Blue Caboose just going to back off. They know that the Sejuani's in the area. Izzo looking to clear out this control ward. Elliot is giving chase, but I like the setup now from the Annie over that wall, just making sure that if Elliot tries to go deep up against their lane counterpart, that they'd be punished for doing so.
Yeah, looks like the side of Ragnarok wants to be aggressive here on the bot side, knowing that Tim is up top. We'll drop the Herald here super early. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but does get a plate off it.
Yeah, at least it's gold going over to Pata, who I think is still one of the stronger members, although look bot side of the map. Annie, oh no! Getting hit by the Encore, setting up the perfect cue for Breeze, and with Atlas there as backup. That's the problem we were talking about with the Annie support.
Yeah, just got caught out, just got bursted, and with nothing but a Bandle Glass Mirror, there's no defensive stats. I am struggling with this sentence today. No defensive stats for Blue Caboose, just not going to live. Tim will get the stack and not live. Tim is very much dead here.
Baffling decisions from the jungler of Optimal Esports. I'm not going to lie, and now Izzo's been drawn to this area, fires off their ultimate, can't get anything. Atlas just going to flash forward, trying to get another kill over to Ragnarok Berserkers, is repelled by the Flame Breath, though, and with Ignite ticking away, Izzo will survive, but is about at half health.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Izzo keeps losing these fights pretty badly. Does have a kill, but Yone has two. Yone has the full Berserker's Greaves. Yone's working towards that Immortal Shield, though, and will be able to pop off and become a major threat long before that Rod of Ages stacks up for Izzo. So I'm a little bit worried about the pace of this mid lane here for the side Optimal.
For sure, I think that Izzo is used to playing the new Aurelion Soul. I just don't know if they're used to playing Aurelion Soul into Yone right now. Although I gotta say, Pata is on a warpath top side of the map. You Wrong Me Right, once again, taking a deep trade. Ultimate's flying left and right, but they get punished heavily. They just have to back off and look at the reset. And now, we're finally seeing the Annie come into their own big shutdown off the Tivers over to the mid laner of Optimal Esports.
Yep, and we did see the best possible outcome. The actual laner got the kill and not the support. We see that all too often where the support will roam and take the kill. But nope, got given over to Izzo here, trying to keep him at parity. We'll have to sack a Drake for it. but with it just being a single cloud, I'm not sure that they're particularly worried.
This is two dragons over to Ragnarok Berserkers, and so this is a clear pathway forward for them to continue to push this game's tempo, especially if they manage to stay at around the same goal as Optimal Esports. Their scaling is nothing to scoff at. The fact that Elliott has a lot of their kills, I think, speaks to the fact that they have a very good chance at taking some of these mid-game fights, and so because of that, they start getting a second dragon, they get the third dragon, and you really begin to wonder, can they force a play for that soul and make that their win condition?
And with it being a Chemtech Soul, this is an incredibly powerful win condition because it brings the Singed back to parity. No matter where he is in that lane, no matter how badly he's losing to Pata, having the increased damage and decreased damage taken at half health means that the Singed is able to just continue running around, continue to take bad trades, and will come out of it just enough healthier that he might be able to get another couple of cheeky kills like he did a couple of minutes ago.
Chemtech's a very interesting still, I gotta say. Aulz, it's one of the ones that doesn't feel super OP if you're already ahead, because you're just not going too low on life. But if you have some lanes that are lagging behind, it can be really powerful in the case of You Wrong Me Right. He has been struggling, although here he's causing quite a bit of discord in this fight. 3 members of Optimal Esports just cannot give chase. They know the rule of thumb. So Singe is gonna get out alongside Atlas, although with so many members topside of the map, Optimal Esports will be the first ones onto this second Rift Herald. The problem is Pata just gets hit by the Encore, but there's no real follow-up. You Wrong Me Right on the far side trying to do something, jumping down onto Tim, but eventually just curve back around yet again. Atlas looking for the angle to maybe go for the spike contestation. Not going to come through. That goes in favor of Optimal Esports. Here comes the Lamb's Respite. That's going to protect Tim, but everybody is going low on Ragnarok Berserker's side. Elliott trying to stand in the middle of 4 members now. They're going to be able to kill Robin, but they will not get out alive. It's a 3-for-1 in favor of Optimal.
A 3-for-1 and a nice edge there. Tim smote too early. The Rift Herald sitting at 100 health, but did manage to secure it. Then got down to all of 150 health before popping that Lamb's Respite. Good job by Robin and Pata to make sure that You Wrong Me Right and Atlas didn't stay in the Lamb's Respite for the heal. Were able to get both of those kills picked up. Elliott did get the kill, but only getting 1-for-1 when you're as far ahead as this Yone is doesn't feel like he's putting out as much power as he needs to be to continue pushing this team forward.
And we talked a little bit about the ceiling of Ragnarok Berserker's team composition, the massive wombo combo potential they have. The problem is right there, they didn't have enough control over the river, and there was just a little bit too much discord in between their members, or maybe not enough discord because they need to be in call together, hopefully on Discord itself. But that's beside the point. Regardless, we really need to see a coordination between the Encore, the Chains of Corruption, and the Yone Ultimate, and it just feels that those things were not stacked properly, and because of that, we only saw picks come through. T-Light's ultimate only hits 1, and from there, the fight just kind of crumbles for Ragnarok, because then there goes the space that I was saying they have as an advantage over Optimal, and Optimal can now move up. They can be a little bit more comfortable stretching their legs during the fight, get stuff like the anti-ultimate out, like setting up with Robin, or getting Izzo the space to drop their own Starfall. Things like that, I think, all come back to really help Optimal Esports during that fight, and now they have a comfortable, although small, gold lead over Ragnarok Berserkers, and they can look to use this to get more priority back, as we're only about a minute before the next dragon.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that coin, for Optimal, we saw exactly what they needed to do to win in that fight. Stay spread out, avoid any of the wombos, avoid any of the major ultimates that can lock everybody down at once. If you can do that 2-3 more times, take a Drake, take a Baron, suddenly this game is blown wide open, even if the team comp for Ragnarok is on paper better, as we said in draft.
And you have to wonder, is You Wrong Me Right on the Singed actually a little bit of a non-bo, given that it's a champion that incentivizes people to spread out? Nice stun there by Blue Caboose to get out. Keeping their wits about them, not burning flash or anything like that, but still, Ragnarok Berserkers are setting up very early for this dragon, and so while they are losing a lot topside of the map, there's a good chance they get a soul point here, unless Optimal Esports wants to immediately reconnoiter and try to push deep, although right now, looks like they just want to continue to gain an advantage topside of the map. They're contesting for that third tower as Shelly gets the charge off. The question is, can this Aurelion still get out alive? Oh, it's the double Encore snipe! Izzo caught out, flipped back over the shoulder of You Wrong Me Right. Tim rushes forward, trying to burst out T-Lights, will be able to get it, but that's 2 kills over to the Singe. and this will, in fact, be Dragon for Ragnarok Berserkers.
Not if Pata has anything to say about it. Looking for the angle here.
Oh, the angle actually comes from Elliot! The ultimate going to hit 2! Robin scattered alongside Blue Caboose. Pata goes deep, but I think it's a little too deep. Atlas is here to provide the CC. Showstopper into the pit don't mean nothing. Bweez is going to get the shutdown onto the premier member of Optimal Esports, and that's a disaster on all fronts.
Yeah, a complete loss across the board. They did get the inhibitor turret. Big
True.
win for them. They got the inhibitor turret. But they're now on Soul Point. Singed has 2 more kills. Looking to finish his 3rd item here. Probably going to be that demonic embrace. Sejuani doing a great job of keeping objectives controlled. Elliot able to cause so much disruption. Bweez suddenly has a couple of kills in his back pocket. Looking to finish that. Ginsu's already. This is a swing and a half, my friend.
And you could look at the game state and say, actually, it doesn't feel that bad. Optimal Esports haven't lost their gold lead. It has shrunk a little bit, but not as substantially as you would imagine a 4-kill play would for Ragnarok Berserkers. The thing is, the gold that Optimal Esports got from that were the charges topside and the towers that they took down. That's only gold that you can get once. Ragnarok Berserkers still has many turrets that they could take down to really just kind of steamroll ahead. And now at the 21-minute mark, we've seen their prowess in team fights. Optimal Esports has to be careful because now a pick, or God forbid, a full-on team fight is going to lead not only to more kills, but it's going to lead to a Baron Nashor.
Yeah, and the other half of that coin as well is look at where Optimal has managed to get turrets. It's only been in the top lane. They only have map pressure there, as Izzo just loses the fight. Not much to say there. He just got out-damaged.
Yeah, it feels like he hit everything. Where's the power that people are talking about with this Aurelion Soul pick? I kind of wish that Blue Caboose swapped champions with him at this point, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, is only sitting at 4 stacks on the Roa. Only has the Rylai's Crystal Scepter in terms of damaging items. Perhaps we need to wait for the Roa to stack. Perhaps we need a Demonic Embrace on top of there before we can really see the damage coming out. But I'm just not seeing it right now.
Pata trying to hero play topside of the map, trying to protect that tower, won't be able to do so, and with the flip back, Tibbers will not save the top laner, and now Blue Caboose is caught up in the Maelstrom. Tim is going to rain down Hellfire, though, be able to answer back a kill onto the enemy jungler with the help of Sivir, but still, Optimal Esports are... It feels like they're losing a lot of priority across the map right now. They have to make almost entirely responsive plays, and Ragnarok Berserkers, because of that, equalize the tower score, get ahead on gold, and they have so many powerful members that they can really needle the weak points of Optimal Esports with.
Yeah, and it's a bit strange, isn't it? They picked such a good team-fighting team, and they're winning off pick plays.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they are very capable of pick plays, though. That is the thing. We talked about it before. Elliot is very adept at doing that. Bweez as well with their chains of
Absolutely.
and, you know, only really hits one person. So inherently, Varus is kind of a pick champion, and Atlas also follows up with that same exact deal given their ultimate.
Yeah, very, very true, I suppose. We are starting to see the issue with the lack of map presence from OE. Look at how pushed in the map is. Elliot completely happy to be sitting all the way up at this tier 2 with no vision, just knowing that there's not a whole lot that Optimal can do. They don't have anywhere that they can run through to really find him. And with him being over there, it looks like the rest of Ragnarok is going to go for Baron.
Blue Caboose just going to throw the stun out. The Starfall comes through, but as you say, OE claps, and they get the shutdown onto the Yone, but it's going to cost themselves the big purple worm topside of the map. Pata voyaging into enemy territory now, moving past these wards. He's trying to get to that river, but I think he knows that it's too little too late. You wrong me, right? Acting as a distraction. Teleport being channeled here from Izzo in the mid lane, maybe looking to also push back Ragnarok Berserkers, but once again, the Star Dragon arrives to the play, only to see the Baron fall, and that buff is going to help Ragnarok in their game plan massively.
Yeah, having the Baron buff, having the extra push, means that it'll be difficult for Pata to do the split pushing that he's been doing so far. That's been the only thing that's been keeping Optimal even here, is being able to split aside Ragnarok. And if you wrong me right can use the empowered minions to keep it balanced, that's not going to be possible. That being said, still a fairly squishy Singed.
For sure, yeah, they couldn't single-handedly defend that mid tower, but the mid tier 1 does stand strong for Ragnarok Berserkers, and given that they have the pushing waves now, this is a very easy time to set up control over the bot side river and get themselves to a relatively uncontested soul.
Yeah, 30 seconds now. Atlas moving forward, clearing out wards. Izzo's the only member of Optimal who's staying over here, so it looks like the side of OE is just gonna sack this Drake Soul? I don't know how I feel about that.
I think that they just had awkward reset timers right there. They tried to send some resources back topside of the map while the Baron was being taken, and because of that, they couldn't immediately reset after picking off Elliot, and now because of that, they all have to walk up, and they walk up into the worst fight of their lives, the Encore on the back line. Here comes the Lamb's Rest, but Elliot is going to use that to their advantage to get out, though, trying to move up against Pata, will eventually get popped, but Timbers is just useless in this fight, as there's a double-double for the Cinch. Nobody can take down you, wrong me right, and it's a 1-for-5 ace in favor of Ragnarok Berserkers. They don't even need the soul. They're just gonna walk this one down mid.
That was perhaps the strangest fight to call the end of the game here. Singed, running around like a madman, went from 0-2 to 7-4. You wrong me right. Doing a great job of telling us to shut up, isn't he?
For sure, that was the ideal fight for a Singed. I was kind of worried that it was a non-bow in this composition where, as I said before, you force people to spread out to deal with the Singed, and because of that, it might be a little bit harder to hit stuff like T-Lights' ultimate, but there's the perfect situation. Vision control, zone control, over to Ragnarok Berserkers, and because of that, they're happily able to just bush camp, do wrong me right, looks for the flank angle, only goes in after the Encore is hit, and from there, is just able to cause so much discord onto that back line. It is textbook play, and Ragnarok Berserkers profit mightily from it. They are going to get themselves Dragon Soul. They get the inhibitor mid as well, and they still have a little bit of time left on that Baron buff.
Yeah, there is a little whisper of hope here now, though. With the soul being taken, that puts Elder on the table. And if the side of OE can steal an Elder, with how low these health bars have been going in some of these fights, especially for Robin and You Wrong Me Right, that execute at 25% could turn these things around massively.
I do agree that Elder could be a deciding fight in this game. The thing is, Ragnarok Berserkers, as we said before, is doing a great job setting up and taking unexpected fights versus Optimal Esports. And as more and more towers fall for Blue Squad, it's going to be harder for them to ever get back up towards that Elder Dragon buff unless they're able to grab a pick. And the pick potential is just all on Ragnarok Berserkers right now.
Yeah, speaking of moving forward, look at the ward control right now. There is nothing on Ragnarok's side of the map because they don't need it. There is no vision for blue side. This is all they see right now, what you're seeing on stream. They have no idea what's going on the map.
There is an argument that they're cheating a lot of vision towards that top side, and that might help them try to set up for the Baron Nashor. That's going to be spawning about 2.5 minutes before the Elder Dragon comes up, but I don't even know if they can contest it. The Baron Nashor isn't going to do a whole lot for them, as now look at this, You Wrong Me Right, so confident trading with Pata near this tier 2 tower top. What a change of the narrative it has been between these two players.
Yeah, now sitting at a full item up, has the Jack Show, so able to take some really aggressive fights here, but does get stunned up under the turret, and might have bitten off a bit too much.
Oh, T-Lights' ultimate is going to go wide as well, so that means no rest for the Wicked. The Singe has to try to make it back the way they came, and that's a big shutdown and a huge throw. Ragnarok Berserkers losing their top lane during that one, and that could be the space and time necessarily bought by Optimal Esports to try to push back onto the map. Ragnarok Berserkers know that this could be the case, though. They're all hovering right outside the base. First down Timbers there, and maybe they're just going to go for the flat-out engage inside near that dead inhibitor.
Elliot made the right choice there to not go for that. As fun as it would have been, as peak Yone as it would have been to go in 1v4, I don't think it was the right call here. I think at 5-4 and 5, he might be a bit over-aggressive to make that call.
I definitely agree with that. And even with the pick, Ragnarok Berserkers are doing a great job sieging this top and mid. Look at that. It's going to be tier 2 taken down by Buiz, who on this Varus is kind of sleeper OP right now. We haven't really highlighted the fact that 4-0-4. All the focus has been on Singed recently between the int and between the team fight win. But yeah, I think that right now the major issue is that Optimal Esports has to deal with a war on all fronts. And even with a 4v5 situation on the map, they were unable to get even close to that Baron, who's now going to be spawning in less than half a minute.
Well, forget getting close to the Baron. They couldn't get out of the base gates. Just complete chokehold by Ragnarok on the map right now. There's only that one pink ward remaining, and T-Lights is probably going to go clear it now that he knows there's no one in that blue buff jungle.
And there's the Baron Nashor spawn.
There he goes.
I don't even know. Yeah, I guess they are going to venture in, clear that one out, but honestly, I don't even know if it's necessary. You could give a little bit of vision control. Maybe it's actually bad for Optimal Esports' mental to watch as the Baron Nashor is taken in front of their very eyes. But here's the relocation. Ragnarok Berserkers rotating everybody except for Buiz up to the big purple worm. I do think you kind of need the Varus there. You have a relatively slow take otherwise, but actually, given the way that Ragnarok is hovering, it looks like they want to bait more than they actually want to take it. They just want to go for a big team fight and from there emerge victorious, although now eventually it will be started up.
Yeah, with the fact that OE isn't even pretending to respond to this, there's not a whole lot of way that Ragnarok can go ahead and bait this. So, good call, even if it's a little bit sad for Ragnarok that they can't find more cheese kills, more picks in rotation here.
Yeah, certainly. Right now, also, I want to do a quick mark check-in for the Kindred. They're at 5 marks at the 30-minute mark, which is not great, not going to lie. Obviously, it's been a little bit hard for them to go even into their own jungle at this point in time, but that's a dynamic to watch out for. Tim has the ability to scale pretty hard, but has just been denied the opportunities to do so because of the chokehold that Ragnarok Berserkers have, and now with this Baron Nashor buff, it's only going to continue to get wards for Optimal as they are besieged topside near that inhibitor turret.
I will say, credit where credit is due, given how much pressure Ragnarok has had throughout the course of this game all across the map, I'm a little bit surprised that Tim was even able to get 5 stacks. So good on him there for at least getting to the first breakpoint.
Yeah, it is a 31-minute banger of a game, 32 minutes now. That's got to be respectable. Optimal Esports have held on and totaled up nicely, and they continue to actually poke and prod. Here comes the encore, though, from the far side of this fight, though. Pata able to just zoom away with the health of the Silver Ultimate, though, so they will stay safe for the time being. The problem is that ultimate from the Seraphine was the breakpoint necessary to come in, take that inhibitor, and now you have 2 waves empowered by those minions pushing towards the enemy base. Robin immediately just has to cleanse flash that one. You rung me right, rushing on into the thick of things, playing, dancing in and out of the turret ranges. Tibbers is here, spawned a little bit too early and just cannot get onto the bulk of Ragnarok members. And now, with only 17 seconds before the Elder Dragon spawns up, Ragnarok once again are able to happily back off and play for a little bit of cheese.
Man, this is some good cheese here. This is a proper camembert. Looks like they might catch Blue Caboose. Nope. Tivers playing face checker.
That's a really good call there. Yeah, very small by Blue Caboose, but it's too little too late. This is kind of the issue sometimes with League of Legends Aulz. You really want to highlight smart things that individual players are doing, but because of the snowball nature of the game, it's just so hard to heap praise on Optimal Esports in general this game because they've lost basically everything on the map. They gave up early priority over those dragons. The stacking did in fact lead to a huge turning point in favor of Ragnarok, and they took 2 kind of silly fights, and from there, look at the game state now. It's a clear dominant lead over to Red Team. They almost have a 10,000 gold lead. They have the Baron Nashor, they have the Elder Dragon, and they are well equipped to just stomp down mid lane and win this game.
Yeah, and this is one of those games that you look at and you just look at the kill score and you say, oh, it's 12-17. This game is nowhere near out of the woods. This game is very close, very winnable. One team fight can change it. And then you look at the objectives. You see 4 Drakes taken, an Elder taken, Baron taken twice, 5 turret advantage, and suddenly you see those incremental advantages that don't show up in the simple, oh, it was 17-12. It's just the slow, methodical play from Ragnarok, taking advantage of the mistakes and doing a great job of choking the life out here.
And this is where you want to go back and heap praise on Ragnarok's overall draft. It was so smart for them to go for the Varus Seraphine bot lane, knowing they're up against the Sivir. They're able to outrange and really push down one of the champions that is a huge scaling threat on Optimal Esports' side. And sure, it was relatively passive earlier, like you were pointing out, Aulz, but it doesn't matter because Elliot, and you wrong me right, eventually started to dominate their individual lanes, and Atlas has been such a big playmaker, while Tim really feels like they have left the spotlight for most of this game.
Yeah, granted, this is one of those where, because it goes great, we give them props. If it had gone poorly, we would be ragging on them for it right now. Why didn't they pick a more aggressive lane? Why didn't they pick something where they would have had pressure? Final fight is starting, though, so might as well focus on that.
Execute's coming in, and already the wipes are so apparent. Ragnarok Berserkers just have the wallet dip to smack down Optimal Esports in this game. Number 1, Izzo trying to get back out of the fountain. Buiz just standing in the middle of everything and happy to rain hellfire down upon the Aurelion Soul. Boo caboose, the last one left alive, and they will bear witness to their Nexus falling. Game number 1 over to Ragnarok.
Yeah, nice, clean win. Did a great job of keeping that one under control. Going to be interesting to see what Optimal turns around here for game number 2, what they decide to change moving forward, because it feels like there's a lot that needs to change before they can pull out a win, mostly mentally.
Yeah, for sure. I think that right now, Optimal Esports need to make a few adjustments to their draft. I like the fact that they're pinching away a lot of these specialization picks from Ragnarok Berserkers, but clearly they also need to have an eye towards the meta a little bit more than they currently do. Not only in terms of their picks, but in terms of what Ragnarok Berserkers are able to play. Also, I just feel that in terms of that draft compounding upon their bans, their draft is also kind of indicative of their eyes being too big for their stomach in a way. They grabbed both the Annie and Aurelion Soul, which you could say is a victory, but I just saw no coordination between those two champions or any real identity for the composition as a whole. And so I hope that they look beyond just the raw win rate of these characters and look instead to what can work to smash team fights, what can work to poke away people, or what can work to get picks. Any of those identities I think would be perfectly fine for them. Ragnarok already seemed to be on top of that dynamic. Let's hope we see an adjustment here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to see some changes. For Ragnarok, it's pretty easy. You run it back, you play it the same, keep the nice, calm mental that you clearly had throughout that game. Not a whole lot that they'll have to talk about in between games. That being said, though, we are going to head to a short break here as the teams get ready for game number 2. Action isn't over. We've got at least 3 more games ahead of us this evening. So go ahead and keep it here, and we will be back in just a few minutes.